Guest into the daily Connerton Memorial Company interview chair here at 9/11 is a new legislator, a new state senator, although I think we've chatted with him before. He takes over the district that was vacated when former Senate Republican leader Len Fasano chose not to seek re-election, representing, I believe, let me think here. Do I have East Haven, Durham, North Haven, Wallingford? Let's welcome back to the show State Senator Paul Cicarella. Paul, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Senator? Good. How are you?
Very well.
Good. I would imagine busy.
Very, very busy.
Yeah. You know, and we don't get you on that often. So if you don't mind, tell us what are some of the bills that you're working on in the committees that you sit on as well.
Sure. So I sit on housing, where I'm a ranking member.
Yeah, I was on
Veterans
housing.
Affairs, also ranking, and I'm on public safety and appropriations.
Ooh, appropriations. That's the big one. That's where all the dollars gets where each dollar is being allocated for. And what was the one you said before that? Oh, public safety. Yeah, public safety, yes. A lot before the Public Safety Committee this year, including was recreational marijuana. Was that before public safety? I know it went to judiciary as well, but
yes.
Yeah, and
so sorry. Go ahead.
No. Please continue. Did you want to make a comment about public safety?
No. Just that a lot of stuff came before public safety. There were some big ones, regarding the online gambling.
Yeah.
So,
are those? They look like they're going to be passing this year. The online gambling and the recreational marijuana. Although I heard some controversy over in the newspaper regarding the recreational marijuana use. There's several Democrats that are actually going to be protesting that bill, which I find fascinating.
So that's a hot topic. Regarding the gambling, I do think all parties somewhat came to an agreement, and I think that's going to move forward. The recreational marijuana is a tough topic, and on both sides, people are concerned. Most importantly, the towns, the communities, the implementation of it, if it goes through, is somewhat of a concern. So they have to really pay close attention, and I think maybe that's where some of the battling may be coming from. Is if it does get passed, the small details within that bill. That's my opinion.
Well, you mentioned the municipalities. What are they afraid of? That they're not going to receive their fair share of the loot that's being made, or is it something else?
Well, that could be a concern too. But specifically here in the 34th, the public safety aspect, and being able to understand if somebody is driving under the influence. There's no roadside testing available right now. There is ways for officers to determine if someone is under the influence of alcohol. And right now, there isn't a roadside test for that. From the best of my understanding is there is a training, and some of our officers are going through that, but it takes a while to get everybody trained, and it is expensive. So that is a concern. There is no immediate test like there is for driving under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah, and the last time I had this conversation with a legislator, I hear that it's actually not, believe it or not, it's actually not a political issue. There are legislators on both sides, or I should say on each side of the political aisles, that are both for this legislation, and there are some against this legislation on each side. And if anything, though, I'm hearing that there are Democrat legislators that could be holding up this bill from it even being called, more specifically, those members of the Black and Latino caucus. Have you heard this, Senator?
I have. I have heard a little bit of the details about that. Again, we are just wrapping up our committees. We're staying very focused on the ones that I was ranking on. But I have heard that. And again, I think it's the details within the bills. There's pros and cons to the bill. Obviously, the financial impact to our top line revenue is good. But then again, there's concerns again with public safety and who's going to get the opportunity to sell the products. And all of the unintended consequences. I think last time I was on, we spoke about that, and the concern with bringing forward of so many bills is to make sure that the majority of the bill does good for the majority of the people. And again, pros and cons to this bill, but it's to the details. I think that's where the argument and holdup is. So that's what I think they're trying to navigate through. And again, who's going to be able to sell it? Where does the money go? Where does the revenue go from it? That's a problem that they're trying to work through.
I know you were heavily involved in legislation that recently passed the Senate. It was called Tristan's Law. So maybe for listeners who don't know who Tristan was, if you don't mind, please talk about his tragic story and how you're trying to protect Connecticut children.
Absolutely. So Tristan, 10-year-old little boy, his family lived in Wallingford. And they were playing last day of school at a friend's house in Cheshire. And ice cream truck came down the street. They heard the bells. They went running. Parents went outside and went with the children to go get the ice cream. Mm-hmm. And while coming back, crossing the street after getting the ice cream, he was struck by a car. And the car was driven by a new driver. And unfortunately, the injuries that Tristan sustained were fatal. Yeah, very tragic. And this happens all the time, not only here in Connecticut, other states surrounding. And there were actions taken to prevent stuff like this from happening. I was aware of this prior to becoming a legislator. I was in my investigation business, and in Hamden, there was another little girl that was hit by a car, really bad injuries. And when I did my research on this, there was nothing out there to help protect the pedestrians, the children, even the other drivers. This was a young driver who struck Tristan, and he was obviously a mess, distraught, and said, "No one told me to slow down. I didn't know to slow down." And from speaking with Cicarella, who was Tristan's mother, she said that Tristan was a responsible young boy, and it was just a freak accident of coming, so close to the truck, the ice cream truck, with not enough room to look right or left. It wasn't as he was running, and just a terrible freak accident. And it was great when I started to call other representatives and senators on both sides and explain the story. And again, this was a new process for me, understanding how to present the bill. And I think I said to you the first time I was on that I wasn't going to present too many bills because I want to see what's out there and see what we can do to kind of clean things up a little bit, and didn't want to just start pushing stuff through without realizing the unintended consequences that sometimes these bills may have. And we really focused on this one. And when I was making these calls, overwhelming support on both sides, which is great to see everybody come together and push it along so fast. You were up at the Capitol, and this could be a very challenging process. And we were able to work together and get this pushed through and hope that there's never a tragedy like this, ever again.
Yeah, Senator, what will the bill result in? What's some of the language of the bill and that the public needs to know that will result from this bill?
Sure. So as it was originally proposed, it definitely changed a lot throughout that process. As you're aware, it came out as a bill that I proposed, and then it went into a appropriate committee, and then they put their twist on it with direction from whatever departments, whether it's Department of Motor Vehicle or Public Health, Safety, et cetera. And those commissioners worked with that committee, and now what it does is makes the ice cream trucks utilize the safety equipment that they have on the trucks. So in both of these incidents that we just spoke of in Cheshire and in Hamden, they had the equipment, they just didn't use it. Now, some trucks...
Why bother having it?
Yeah. Well, again, there's no direction. Just like the young gentleman that struck Tristan said, I didn't know to slow down. Some people may realize you see an ice cream truck or even a UPS truck, a mail truck. People should slow down. And sometimes people don't. They don't realize that. Also what it will do is the trucks that don't have this safety equipment, it will tell them, they have to get this equipment on the truck. It's not overly expensive. and there are buses that get decommissioned that have this equipment, and we're trying to work a pipeline to get some of these trucks.
What is some of this equipment, Senator? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to. What does this equipment entail? Are we talking, like those bars that come out on school buses, or with the stop sign that with the lights that flicker on and off? What are some of this? What are some of the equipment that you're referencing that these ice cream trucks have and have not been utilizing?
Exactly what you just said.
Okay.
Very similar to the school bus safety equipment with the stop sign that comes out.
Right.
And it's going to let the drivers know. Now, keep in mind, these are mostly on back road, neighborhood roads. That's the research that was done showed that the ice cream trucks are working on 25 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour roads. So keep that in mind. It's not they're going to be on a highway and a stop sign goes up like a school bus and everybody has to stop the car.
Right.
And so that was very carefully thought about. And they don't have to stop and wait. They stop and proceed with caution. And again, that's going to create the ability to realize they're vending ice cream. There may be children that are going to come running out. It's like seeing a ball come rolling out in the middle of the road.
Sure.
There's probably going to be a child following it.
And what happened? And what happened with Tristan with this ice cream truck? I'm wondering. You said that the driver was relatively young, right? He was maybe new to the industry. You think maybe this can be chalked off to the fact that he's inexperienced as a young driver and not really been driving an ice cream truck too long? Are you familiar with maybe other vendors who drive these food trucks or ice cream trucks that are more experienced and have been using? Go ahead.
So it was not the driver of the ice cream truck.
Oh.
In both situations, it was not the driver. It was vehicles passing by the ice cream truck, at a fair rate of speed to cause these injuries. Okay. Same thing with Hamden and the car accident in Hamden. It was a middle-aged woman who struck the child. So, speed, I think, is a factor. And again, not being aware that the truck is vending to somebody and that they may be coming, across the street. Also, what it does is makes the ice cream trucks vend on the curb side of the road.
Ah, interesting. We're talking with State Senator Paul Cicarella. That begs the follow-up question to that. Is this law strictly limited to ice cream trucks, or if you're a local taco truck or any other food vendor, do they have to adhere to these laws as well?
So, no, they don't. We wanted to make sure that there wasn't that miscommunication. Even if you're an ice cream truck and you're only doing catering and you're not vending on a state road or a town road, the equipment is not necessary. So if you are a taco truck and you post up in a parking lot, you do not need this safety equipment. It's when you're vending on the road. All
right. So in other words, a good humor truck who's selling ice cream and ringing the bell neighborhood to, in all these different neighborhoods, they would have to have it. However, if you're a good humor truck that is for hire only, then you don't have to have it.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm glad you've clarified that. That's and you yourself, you're a father, right? You can relate to being concerned about about children and especially when they hear the ice. I've got a 10-year-old son, and he can hear the ice cream truck from what seems like a mile or two away. And I'm Gary, you hear the ice cream truck? I'm like, no, I don't hear anything. Lo and behold, a few minutes later, I'm like, son of a gun, how did he hear that? Now I can hear it. These kids can hear it from miles away.
I do have two little ones, and I was coaching their soccer game, and one of the little boys on the other team, when the ice cream truck pulled up to the field, he ran off the field while he was playing soccer. So they definitely get excited about the ice cream. So again, this was something great to put through, in Tristan's name, but also possibly save other children. But it was also a great example of working together, both sides working together to move something along that needed to be done. Yeah,
and that's something we don't hear about too often as a bipartisan bill. Things get very partisan, particularly with the major bills that receive all of the media attention. I'm just thinking to myself, hopefully something something can happen good out of an incident that was just so absolutely terrible. I know it now awaits for a vote in the House. You had mentioned a moment ago that you were an investigator, right? So I would imagine that being an effective lawmaker requires building relationships with other legislators, Democrats and Republicans, to help try to, get things done and move bills along. Talk about the relationships that you are creating as a new senator.
So a lot of great relationships, meeting a lot of great people up there, not only the legislators, but all of the research and the legal staff, both partisan and bipartisan. It's really great to work, again, cross the aisle and to try to accomplish something good. And on veteran affairs, it's another great example of really putting your minds together to come up with a solution for the better of that community and or committee. And we do that well. And I wish we could kind of roll that into some of the other committees that we're working together on. I'm on appropriations, and just recently we had a public hearing, if you will, and we were trying to push through some bills to approve them so they could get to the floor and we could talk about them. And one of them was the bill that you guys were just talking about, hot topic issue, the religious exemption. And you guys mentioned there was 800 or 8,000 children that may be affected and displaced. In the bill language, it's unenrolled from their schools. And what are we going to do with those children that need an education? And when we were working together to figure out if this was going to be financially correct, we had the Office of Financial Analysis give us some numbers. And as a team, again, bipartisan team, we came together and noticed that there may be something off, that there may be some numbers that are not correct here. And it seemed to be like we were going to be able to correct it. Mm-hmm. And again, both sides realized there was an issue. And unfortunately, after a break for a caucus, and that's when you kind of hop offline and talk and try to, with your side, Democrat or Republican, and figure out what's going on here and what are the consequences of making a decision here. After that, the conversation of solving the problem kind of ended. And it was, we're going to move by and we're not going to pay attention to that. That's not what we're here to do today, which in my opinion, and I'm new, that's what we were there to do.
Sure.
It was about finances, and this was a financial impact in the bill. Yep. And we couldn't finish talking about it.
And there's a couple, and I'm running out of time, Senator. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up some of the topics that we brought up, already been talking about this morning. You mentioned the vaccinations bill, but there's also a pretty controversial bill that has to do with state government more or less circumventing municipalities in their local TPZs. I know that's a hot topic as well. Are you familiar with any of that?
I am. I'm on housing, and that's coming up in multiple committees, which is strange. You think it would be just in maybe housing or planning and development, but It's in transportation. It's in a lot of different committees. And, taking away local control, the towns.
It's never a good thing. Never a good thing, Senator. Do you think that bill has legs? Do you think it'll die?
I don't know, and there's a few of them. So to speak on that, it would be irresponsible of me.
Okay.
But I just hope that we pay attention to the unintended consequences of that bill.
Yeah, and you're right. There are a lot of unintended consequences on a lot of bills, and the fact that just to hearing that there are several bills pertaining to the same thing tells me that in some way, shape, or form, one of those bills will see the light of the day and pass. I want to thank you for your time, Senator. I appreciate it. We got to get you back more often.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You got it. State Senator Paul Cicarella. You do the same. We come back. Open phones and